Coming up on 2.5 Geeks, we've got the evolution of the SSD. We also have the evolution of the all-in-one. We've got a revolution in smartphones and a whole lot more.
The bar has been set wicked fast. It rocked in the benchmarks.
We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power, I kind of understand this. Nothing like Marco screwing up a shot right before we start the show.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wanted to see if I can get it to focus on the 1 terabyte.
Oh, it focused on there. We're recording right now. Hey, welcome to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar alongside Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. Now is time for the most terrifying question that I ask every week. I ask, how are you doing? But this time, I'm going to direct it towards one of you. Marco, how are you?
I'm good. I am freshly back from a short vacation, and I have to give a quick shout-out to Lexi and Grace, the two coolest chicks in North Carolina. But I'm back in the saddle now. I'm ready to get to work.
A shout-out? What is this, mid-90s radio? Who does that anymore?
Holla.
Holla, yo. Holla to your boy. What up, Dave? How you be?
I be groovin', feeling good, actually. Thanks very much. I think groovin' was probably back to the 70s reference, but doing just fine, thank you. And how are you?
I am very good. Today we're recording. Finally, it's been so many weeks, and I've actually read up on today's stories, so this is going to be a shocker, because I might actually know something, have informed questions, or just be as confused as I normally am, because I've read tons of hot hardware content. First up, let's go to Dave, and you guys just did a Superphone roundup. On that front page, you have this beautiful look at the Samsung Galaxy S4, the HTC One, and I think the LG Optimus 2, if that's the right one. I can't remember because they seem to have millions of names. What's the best smartphone or superphone out there?
Well, it's not really about what's the best. It's really about what's right for you. And we actually looked at the HTC One, as you suggested, the Samsung Galaxy S4, and the LG Optimus G Pro. The LG G2 is coming out. It's not out yet. That's something that's on the horizon. We also took sort of a tertiary look at the Nokia Lumia 1020, as well as Motorola's Moto X, Google's Moto X, that is on the horizon as well. We're expecting that phone shortly. We haven't gotten that in for review yet. It is on order. But the moral of the story that we try to paint for the reader here with this roundup of the current crop of superphones is that you really need to take a hard look and see what sort of subtle nuances, whether they be from a hardware standpoint or from a feature standpoint and software and usability, what's important to you, because all of these phones are very capable. All three of them are excellent devices, and they have varying price points. So, certainly the dollars and cents might make a difference for you. But really, what's important to you in terms of usability, features, and functionality, as well as horsepower. And so we try and lay that out a little bit for the reader and step through that a little bit.
It seems like what these companies are trying to do now is they're trying to differentiate themselves on style. Finally, it seems like for the longest time we were looking at black slab versus black slab versus black slab, and now they're pumping up custom software, pumping up custom hardware. Lumia, obviously, Nokia hanging its hat on a camera. What other elements should people be considering? Because specs at this point are not the only thing to look at. I know that we're on Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, and you're probably at HotHardware.com, and specs are very important. But is it really possibly true that specs might not matter anymore?
Black Slab, that should be like a band name. I'm with Black Slab. Anyways, I digress.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you did.
I don't know. I just like that. Sorry, IS. Yeah. So, looking between the three devices, the primary three devices we looked at in this article, really you've got a case of functionality and software features that are really what differentiate the phones between each other. For starters, from a hardware perspective, there are some subtle differences here for sure. The HTC One has a 4.7-inch display, 1080p resolution, serious pixel density, 468, highest pixel density of the three, 468 ppi. So really nice, tight, smaller display, 4.7 inches. The Samsung Galaxy S4 is sort of in the middle at 5 inches, and the LG Optimus G Pro is by far the largest at 5.5 inches, also with a full 1080p display. So you've got different size displays. That is a primary consideration, we would think, for most people. What size display, how pocketable is it, how much screen real estate do you need? They all have fast quad-core processors, Snapdragon 600 series processors at various speeds. Certainly that's going to make a difference. But really, there's some very specific differences in features. And, for example, HTC's got their Sense UI, and they've also got this thing called Blink Feed, which gives you sort of this rolling update of apps that are important to you, quick looks at whether it be, Facebook or, different pictures or whatever you happen to set up on your home screen. Blink Feed gives you quick swipe access. You don't have to drill down. That commercial they had where folks don't have to drill down. It's right there on Blink Feed. You can get to your most often accessed apps and information. So that's a big feature for the HTC One, and it's actually a pretty cool, certainly a pretty cool app. Also, their ultra pixel camera, not a super high resolution camera from a spec standpoint, but the quality of it and some of the features in editing and publishing features that come with the camera app itself are excellent. The Galaxy S4, lots of gesture control, multi-gesture control without actually touching the screen, motion gesture. You've got multi-window, sort of a multitasking assist with multiple windows you can open up at any given time. Lots of different features there, as well as an excellent 13 megapixel camera. And, again, sort of Samsung spin on it, and really just looking at the environment, and what Samsung brings to the table there. It's a very well built, refined, I guess, experience in terms of the mobile, environment that they've created. And then the LG Optimus G Pro is even more powerful in a lot of respects than the other two. They've got something called Q-Slide, which actually lets you open multiple apps, whether it be a web browser maybe you have in the background, and then in the foreground, maybe you want to pull up the calculator or Notepad, a quick little note taking app. And you can slide the transparency of the app windows for each of those apps back and forth to bring them to the foreground, to the background, or to make them a little bit more subdued versus the web browser, let's say, you have in the background. So some pretty powerful features with the LG Optimus G Pro, as well as their VR panorama, 360-degree stitching camera that actually gives a virtual 360 VR view of a picture you might stitch together around you. Maybe that's important to you. It's kind of a cool little novelty feature. But there's all sorts of little nuances, and we sort of lay that out, and we invite the reader to drill down and see what's really important, what's really standout, how these manufacturers differentiate themselves between each other.
I like that you called it the Samsung spin on Android. I have another four-letter word beginning with an S for that. But when it comes to those devices, at this point, it seems like I wish I could take parts of each and make my own device. I mean, they're becoming more and more computer-like. You're talking about multi-window support. We've got great parts that are pretty much commoditized. There should be a way at one day where I can do a build-to-order where I want that 41-megapixel camera with Android. Plus, I want a wood back like the Moto X. Maybe one day. One day will be like PCs.
It's funny. You mentioned the 41-megapixel camera. I just want to jump in real quick. You're talking about the Nokia Lumia 1020, and I think that phone does not get enough respect. I've tested that device myself personally. It is a fantastic phone, and Windows Phone 8 is a really slick phone operating system. Now, it's not Android. It's certainly got to go through a few more revs of maturity in terms of the store and all that good stuff. But it just works, and it's fast, and it doesn't take a lot of horsepower under the hood to make it feel snappy, and it's very intuitive. The camera on that phone is to die for. It's a fantastic camera. It's not just about the megapixels. It's about the optics. It's about the motion, the image stabilization that's on board. Floating, that's the word I was looking for. Floating image stabilization that's on board. Really well built phone and excellent onboard camera. So maybe that's important to you. And for the average user that just needs to browse the web, do a little email, and then take some pictures, like everybody just wants to pull out and grab that on the moment shot, that's a great option. So lots of things to consider there, and every phone has its own little, twist that you might want to consider.
Shall we move on to the world of SSDs? Because Samsung's got a brand new series called the Evo line. I've actually covered this on some other shows I do. They go from 250 gigabytes to 1 terabyte, and they're supposed to be screamingly fast. And looking at the Hot Hardware review, that I think, Marco, you actually wrote this, right?
I did, yes.
You got some nice charts and stuff showing the performance. What did you find out with this particular series of SSDs?
So here it is. Here is the Samsung Evo. Hopefully you guys could get a good glance on camera. And if I bring it close without messing up this shot, this is 1 terabyte right here. This is a 1 terabyte SSD in my hand. And
That's
just to
amazing.
correct one quick thing that you mentioned, they actually go from 120 gigs up to 1 terabyte, not 250 gig. So what makes these drives special is they're an evolution of Samsung's 840 series. The Evo sort of, hints that they're an evolution of the previous gen. They use a similar controller, but it's been clocked up. So the previous gen used a 3-core controller clocked at 300 megahertz. This is the same 3-core controller, but clocked at 400 megahertz. They've also incorporated newer NAND technology. It's using 19 nanometer TLC NAND. Now, the specs on the drives are awesome. So the 250 gig on up can read at 540 megs a second, writes up to 520 megs a second. The 120 gig drive is slightly less in terms of writes. I believe it was 410. I don't have the spec in front of me. Throughout testing, the drives put up excellent numbers, basically across the board, whether in terms of IOPS, large sequential transfers, 4K transfers, or trace-based tests like those used in PCMark. The drives just put up awesome scores across the board. They're really, really nice.
Okay, so now comes the question of pricing. I will ask the question of pricing. 1 terabyte SSD, if you asked me that 2 years ago, I probably would push you over and say, look, I don't have that kind of money. That's ridiculous. But
Right.
1 terabyte SSD, what's the damage?
Push them right over.
It's actually I'm gonna give you two numbers because the 1 terabyte drive is
Are you
the
a car
best
salesman?
deal. No, it's 65 cents a gigabyte, which is one of the lowest out there. So $6.49 for a terabyte of storage. Huge price, not cheap, but for a super fast terabyte SSD, not so bad. Now, I also should mention some few features that these drives offer. Through software, through Samsung's Magician software, they have a mode called Rapid. And with Rapid, it basically uses a portion of your system memory, along with some CPU resources, to cache the most frequently used bits of data on the SSD into system memory. So in terms of like trace-based tests or real-world tests, you're probably looking at 10 to 20% improvement according to something like PCMark. But in the synthetic tests, you see transfer speeds in multi-gigabytes per second, 4 or 5 gigs a second, which is PCI Express SSD territory. So it's sort of a software trick. It's like the hybrid hard drives where they would store the most commonly used bits from the hard drive onto an SSD, but sort of evolved to take the bits from an SSD into system memory, which is even faster.
Now, as I was reading this article this afternoon, I was lost because you guys started talking about TLCs, MLCs, SLCs. What on earth does that mean?
A lot of LC going on, huh?
Yeah, the NAND flash memory used in today's SSDs will consist usually of one of those three. SLC, which is single level cell, MLC, which is multi-level cell, or these drives use 19 nanometer TLC, triple level cell. So SLC NAND, it's 1 bit per cell. I'm going to really simplify it here. MLC is 2 bits per cell, and TLC is 3 bits per cell. Now, TLC NAND, this particular TLC NAND is, as I mentioned, manufactured at 19 nanometer. So as geometries go down with NAND, the endurance technically goes down as well. The TLC NAND is not quite as durable as similar produced MLC. MLC is technically not quite as durable as similarly manufactured SLC, just to really simplify it. But through tricks with the controller, with the firmware to minimize write amplification, through wear leveling, you can get acceptable endurance in a consumer class drive like this. while keeping costs down, which is why you see this 1 terabyte drive costing only 65 cents per gigabyte.
And by endurance, you mean because flash memory has a finite amount of read writes, it can operate more like a TLC can operate more like an MLC because of the software.
Well, because of the controller and the firmware, yes, basically, to simplify it, yes. So there's no, like, I've only had the drive a few weeks. I'm not sitting here writing on it until they die. I don't have the kind of equipment to test to say, okay, this drive's going to die after, X number of writes. That's basically what they're talking about when they say endurance with NAND. Each cell can be written to X, a certain number of times. TLC is lower than MLC. MLC is lower than SLC. That's the gist of it.
I freaking love this show. I learn a lot on this program. It's like school but fun. So that's good to know. So yeah, if you want to check out that full report, definitely check out HotHardware.com because there's tons of testing, and Marco's written up I think about 8 million words on it.
It's not that long.
It's pretty long. It's really good though. It's really in depth. So if you actually want to know anything about this, and now you want to get the supplemental information, there it is at HotHardware.com. Early plug for the website. If you didn't notice it up there, HotHardware.com. Let's talk about some all-in-ones. Now, Hot Hardware had
Who's the used car salesman, by the way?
I was not. Hey, listen now. I have yet to sell a car. I might have sold some furniture. Anyway, let's talk about. I have sold an all-in-one PC. I will tell you that. I used to have a Gateway all-in-one media center PC, which I sold for $100 whopping dollars. This is $100 in 2005 money, which is like $8 million now. So take that.
Yeah.
Anyway, things have changed a lot. I know Hot Hardware has 2 reviews up right now. There's a Dell XPS 27 Touch, which is the successor to the 27. And then there's this HP Z1, which looks like something built from the Soviet-era tanks. It looks like it's spare parts. But both are very different in the way the old all-in-ones were in the old days. Dave, what do you got?
Soviet era of tanks. Wow. I'm not sure the people at HP would take so kindly to that description. But
the workstation, you would like the workstation. Like
you will like the workstation. You don't have to sell it. You just insist that they like it. So yeah, we actually took a look at 2 27-inch all-in-ones. We've lately been taking a look at, frequently taking a look at all-in-one PCs because there are some very interesting new builds that are coming to the market. And really, it's indicative of the magnificent march of technology, to use a phrase. Lots of M's going on there. Sorry about that. But yeah, it used to be that the all-in-one was a compromise product. You may get a beautiful display, but in the back you get some mobile components, generally, the platform, notebook-style platform under the hood. Lower power, not a lot of ventilation in the chassis, and so you got to keep things cool back there. And so notebook platform, not as powerful, generally either integrated or very low-end discrete graphics. And so you would compromise. And for the average person that needed, wanted an all-in-one, that was interested in an all-in-one as maybe a media PC or for use in the kitchen or, something for the family to use, it was a good consumer-level product. Didn't have a lot of the horsepower that an enthusiast or a higher-end power user might be interested in, and certainly not enough horsepower for a workstation model or usage model. So today we launched the XPS 27 Touch all-in-one review, the Dell, and previously we looked at the HP Z1, 2 very different all-in-ones that offer serious performance and horsepower under the hood that would rival, I would argue, some mid-range desktop and mid-range workstation PCs.
All right, so taking a look at these things. Now, the 27 Touch has multi-touch on the actual screen, unlike the original 27. That's great for Windows 8 and things. But in the review, I noticed apparently with a screen that large, it seems a little ridiculous to be touching those things because it's just too dang ridiculous. And also, something I've never seen on an all-in-one, the HP Z1 has this amazing, easy to access and easy to upgrade, kind of like car hood design or like reverse hood. It just kind of falls forward the screen. What did you make of these design choices?
Yeah, very, very different products, no question about it. And you really have to think about the target markets they serve. Dell's XPS 27 Touch all-in-one is obviously a consumer product. Yeah, it seems sort of counterintuitive to get your hands mucking all over this big, beautiful 27-inch display. It's a big display. There's going to be a lot of hand movement going across that sucker. But with Windows 8 and the touch interface, you're certainly more tempted to quickly access things with a touch, with the Metro interface and a touch interface in general. It's significantly more useful there. And so here you've got a situation where you've got the latest Intel Haswell processor under the hood, with all the low power goodness at idle that processor brings, and when it kicks into high gear, it's every bit as fast, if not faster, in certain applications than the Ivy Bridge generation. Haswell's about lower power, integrated graphics, and performance, but performance with power efficiency, so performance per watt. And it also has a 2 gig GeForce, what is it? A GeForce GT 750M mobile graphics, discrete mobile graphics card, but with 2 gig of GDDR5 on board. So set up every bit as much as a high-end mobile graphics offering. So, serious, horsepower here, where we actually were able to see at native res of the panel, 1080p, 1920 by 1080, we're able to see playable frame rates at medium and high image quality settings. So no complaints there, and really no compromises for, again, an all-in-one PC that, otherwise, you'd normally see a gray box to house this level of horsepower. The HP Z1, as you mentioned, Ayaz, is absolutely targeted for the workstation professional. First of all, it's got an Intel Xeon processor under the hood, an NVIDIA Quadro Pro Graphics, professional graphics card under the hood, so it's all kinds of certified and qualified for different pro applications, Maya, CATIA, all those CAD and 3D rendering and design packages. So the graphics card is certified for that, and the drivers and all that good stuff. But under the hood, or under the skins, when you flip the hood on this thing, it's set up with a very modular design, and it's excellent. As you can see, you have full-size DIMM slots. You have a modular approach to the graphics card, a modular approach to the drive base. You've got a situation where the system is significantly more serviceable to the end user, obviously, and thus in a workstation environment, these things are more important.
I really want that HP design to be integrated by pretty much anybody who makes a somewhat sealed device, phones or all-in-ones. If you can just take down one piece and I can get inside and I can change things, that seems like the way to go in the future, because I'm tired of people saying engineers can't figure out how to put a hinge in. Very annoyed by that.
Yeah, simple stuff. It makes a big difference. It's the little things. And actually, I should go back and correct myself on a little thing. The native resolution of the Dell panel is 2560 by 1440. So really nice high-end display there. And so, yeah, again, with these two machines, you're looking at the kind of horsepower, the kind of performance and functionality that really is, no compromise. I mean, for the type of system it is, for the size panel, for the things you're going to want to do with it, these all-in-ones really can cut the mustard. It's not like the days of old where you had to take a hit in multimedia or graphics performance or drive throughput. The Dell has a 2 terabyte hard drive with a 32 gig SSD cache drive on board, so you get some really nice throughput from the hard drive subsystem on that machine as well. And so with these new technologies, we're really impressed with both machines, and we're happy to see the all-in-one sort of has grown up, so to speak.
Yeah, like I was mentioned before, I did have an old Gateway all-in-one, because back then that was the only way to get Media Center. You had to buy a special kind of computer, or you got that special distro of XP that had Media Center built in, and you'd attach it. But that was a long time ago, and now I'm still looking for a new Media Center, because I got this big giant workstation. Actually, it is a Dell Vostro. It's not meant for the masses, that I've been using as a Media Center for some time now. But I think I want to go smaller, Marco. I want to get a smaller device like you have sitting around there. What do you have?
I want to give a quick tease because I just got it and the review is not ready yet, but I want to show it off. So before
Such
I
a
do,
tease.
I want to show the Intel NUC. I'm sure you guys have seen this. So this is Intel's next unit of computing is what they're calling it. It's basically an ultra small form factor PC. On the front, just a single USB port, power button right here. And on the back, we have some more USB ports, display outputs, and Thunderbolt. So this is sort of what Intel sees as the future of computing, these super small form factors. Now, Zotac has been making these super small systems for a while, but typically they would use lower power components like, AMD E-series, dual cores, smaller chips that are more easily managed in these small cases. But I want to show you the ZBox Nano ID65. So this guy here is just slightly bigger than the NUC. I don't know if it's going to come across well on the webcam. But if you take a look, tons more connectivity. You have Wi-Fi, USB 3, gigabit Ethernet, just tons of connectivity. And even on the front, more USB ports, a card reader, an IR receiver, just basically a full-featured system. And this guy is actually powered by a Core i7 3370. It has 4 gigs of RAM already in it. And right now, this particular one is a ZBox Nano Plus, which means it comes with memory and a drive. But it also includes an adapter plate where you can take out the 2.5-inch drive, plug in this adapter, and do RAID with 2 mSATA SSDs. So in this tiny little box, you could technically have SSD RAID also and a Core i7. It's just, I'm so impressed that they're able to squeeze so much into this form factor.
So this is just a preview. When is the actual review going to be up of that Zotac?
So this webcast will probably hit the site on Wednesday the 21st. I'm hoping to have the review up by the 22nd or 23rd. At most, it'll be a day or two after that, but I'm working on it right now. I will give you a hint and say that performance is what you'd expect out of a Core i7. This is an Ivy Bridge Core i7, not a Haswell Core i7. But performance is going to be right in line with that, just in this super small form factor.
Okay, I officially hate you because I want that in my cabinet now.
I want that.
I want that Zotac immediately. I have to get myself a new media PC, or I got to build one because I've just been sitting around and, man, it's just dated as all heck. It must be like, I want to say it's almost 5 years old.
Yikes.
Yeah.
You should think about waiting for the Haswell version of that or something in that ilk because integrated graphics, I think Intel's integrated graphics on Haswell now certainly will cut it nicely for you.
Do you think I should go with a Haswell-based media center? That's fine with me. The more power, the better, especially with freaking media centers. I remember back in the day when I was like, I'm going to load this thing up. I'm going to put 4 gigabytes of RAM in it. That was a really long time ago. That was like 2005, 2006 when I was building my previous one. Anyway, so if you've been listening to this show or watching this show and you're like, hey, wait a second. Where the heck can I read about everything we talked about? It means you weren't paying attention in the middle because I did mention HotHardware.com. See, I caught you there. See what happened there? And if you actually go to the website, you might notice something on the right-hand side. You might find that Hot Hardware content is available all over the web. I'm on the site right now, and I'm seeing all these little icons. There's like, you can go to twitter.com/hothardware. You can go to facebook.com/hothardware. You can go and actually subscribe to the RSS if you're into that kind of thing. What is this email-looking thing? Can I receive a newsletter, Dave?
Yes, you can. That's our news tip line. But if you scroll down the page just a touch and it says subscribe to HH News alerts, that's where you can get daily email blasts of all our top stories.
So you got that option. You've got youtube.com/hothardwarevids. You've got, it looks like an iOS app as well.
We do have an iOS app. We need to polish that up, but it's actually fine. It's just hasn't been updated lately, but it will give you on your iDevice your hot hardware, so it gets the job done.
And there's also Google Plus. You can do a search. And by the way, if you're like, hey, listen, I can't possibly write down all these URLs in my address bar, go to hothardware.com and then click a link. You'll see them. There are all these little icons around. Makes it a lot easier for everything. This hyperlinked system on the internet, I hear it's pretty handy.
Tubes, hyperlinks, it's beautiful.
It's the way things work, I think. Oh, I think that was a fun episode. I'm going to pat myself on the back there. I'll pat Dave on the back virtually. Marco. All right.
Thanks,
You're
sir.
all patted.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everybody next week.
Oh, I thought you were already signed off.